It's time for Speaking of Speaking. Quick tips and tools to take you from stage fright to spotlight. This podcast gives you an inside look from the world of public speaking and speaking secrets you need to be bold from the stage, no matter what business you're in. The host of Speaking, Carl Richards.
Thank you, Matt. Yes, and welcome to another edition of the Speaking podcast. Here we are getting closer to the end of 2019. Hard to believe that we're less than 3 months away from the end of, not only the end of the year, but the end of the decade. And when I look back on the last 10 years, and maybe you've done this too, you can certainly see how the world has changed. Not just the world of business, but even the world of speaking. If you've been around the speaking world like I have been for the last 25 years ago, you no doubt have noticed some changes. Those changes are going to continue as we look ahead to 2020 and beyond. So some of the changes that we've noticed in business, for example, was, think about it, back, in 2010, you had a website, right? You probably had a website by then. If it wasn't a great website, it was still okay because people would still go to your website and spend a little bit of time there to find whatever information they needed. Now, people go to your website, they want instant gratification. Instant gratification, right? We've experienced that in business a lot. How can you help me? How can you help me now? And if you can't help me now, who do you know, or how can I get to somebody who can help me right now? I've certainly noticed that not only in the speaking world, but in the business world as well. Think about it. Also, in 2010, social media was around, but even social media has evolved a lot, and that has also evolved in the world of speaking, or has evolved the world of speaking, rather, and how we approach it. So if you look back 10 years, and oh my goodness, go beyond that, look back 15 years, what's changed since 2005 in business and in the world of speaking? So I thought what I'd do is I take today to give you a bit of an overview of some of my thoughts, and based on some of the people I've talked to, some of the things I've also researched on the internet, which is where we do a lot of our research now, just from some of the things that I've heard other people talking about in interviews or read in articles of where not just the business world, but the business of speaking or your speaking is headed as we get into 2020 and go beyond. So this is 2020, or your 2020 vision of speaking for 2020. And I have 5 things I want to cover today. Number 1 is this whole concept of online moving to offline. We have spent so much time online that we've forgotten that there's a whole other world out there that's face-to-face. So a lot of those face-to-face communications we had before, from networking events to chambers of commerce events, which is also obviously a form of networking, to live events. I know a lot of thought leaders and business professionals who are doing their own events where they might have done things online before, or they would have had programs that they offered online. They're now moving some of those events offline, at least partially, or creating a live component as well, because we recognize that as much as the online world is still filled with information, it's hard to be real. It's hard to be the real you. It's hard to have people get to know what you're really like too if you're only living in cyberspace. So that's one of the things I've noticed, and is a huge shift from online to offline. So to go along with that, number 2 is a lot more live events. As we shift from an online world, you can see a lot of events starting to pop up again. Everything from chambers of commerce meetings to networking events. People are hosting their own events for business, cocktail hours, evening seminars and sessions. Back about 10 years ago, a lot of that stuff was shifting to the online world, where people were doing a lot of webinars. And a lot of those webinars, it's not to say people aren't still doing them, but a lot of them are shifting back to being live events face-to-face. Number 3, social media events. Remember when social media was, you would throw sheep at people and say hi to them and maybe play a game of Sims, and that's kind of what you did? Well, now there's a huge and I'm talking Facebook here, but even on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, I don't even think was around then, or if it was, certainly in its infancy stages, but there's a lot of things happening in the social media world that's leading to live events on social media. We see that a lot in Facebook now, where people are hosting watch parties. Some people are hosting training events and using Facebook as the platform to do it. So you can expect to see more of that as you move into 2020 and beyond. And you have to ask yourself too, if this is where it's going, how can I be a part of that? How can I look at my business and either create a watch party or have something there that's going to entice people in the social media world to follow me where they might not have followed me before? So I have a coach, for example, who just finished a complete online program. It was only a 7-day program. It was entirely online though. So 7 hours of information that she covered in using a social media platform for this program, had a price point for it and everything. She didn't have to leave the comfort of her house. She just presented it online using social media, and there it was. Now this obviously is something she can use to create a live event, to create a live program, or to create even an online program. So there are definitely some more opportunities as we move beyond into 2020 for social media type events. Number 4, competitions. I've been noticing a lot of public speaking competitions, and not just in the world of Toastmasters either, but other competitions popping up. Some of the prizes that are being offered is everything from business training and coaching to prize money to speaking opportunities to registration at a speakers bureau. So a number of those competitions that will pop up. Obviously, whoever is doing those competitions will be looking for the cream of the crop. So if you think you're ready to compete, to not only position yourself as an expert, but also to maybe position yourself as a person who could win that prize and represent yourself in, for example, a bureau. Those competitions, I think you'll see more and more of them as people embrace speaking for business more as we look into 2020 and beyond. And finally, I think you're going to find, and it sort of encapsulates everything I've talked about, you're going to find more authentic networking. Networking isn't anything new. But what I think is new is this piece about not just networking for the sake of getting together. So not just going to a networking meeting like a BNI or some of the networking groups I belong to here in Eastern Ontario, Kingston Connections, for example, or the Kingston Sales and Marketing Club. Not just about networking for the sake of networking, but for the sake of networking for authentic connections, or maybe even partnerships. I actually met with a lady who I've known for several years, and we were involved in Toastmasters together, but now we're looking at a partnership, and that partnership didn't just come because we've known each other for a while. It came because we've been networking together, not just your typical networking, but authentic networking, and making those lasting connections and shifting them as things also shift, not only in the universe, but in the business world as well. So a few things to keep in mind, and I think I'll cover these in more detail one at a time. Your 2020 vision of speaking for 2020 and beyond. Number 1, again, online to offline. A lot of things moving from the digital platform to the real stage as it's been there before. Live events, a lot of live events, whether they're your own live events or live events of other business people you know who are hosting them. Social media events, an online platform that we're embracing more and more, but not just in the sense of doing Facebook Live videos, but in the sense of live online training events. Competitions where you can have a shot at winning some type of prizing or even putting up some type of prizing in competition to solidify your position as an expert. And then authentic networking leading to authentic connections and partnerships. I hope this has been helpful. I want to make sure I give you the opportunity, though, if you are going to be in the Kingston area on the 13th of November, I am hosting Pitch Fest. It's where entrepreneurs learn to sell themselves. This is an example of an authentic networking event because we will have people who are pitching their business. So if you think you have a really good pitch, I'd love to see you pitch your business. The person who has the winning pitch, by the way, will win business mentoring for a year from some amazing people who have skills in public speaking training, marketing marketing strategy, website review and design, social media support, and much more as well. It's $50 to enter to pitch. It's $20 if you want to be an audience member. Either way, go to my website, carlspeaks.ca/pitchfest, and you'll find all the information there. I hope this has been helpful today. Until next time, it's Carl Richards. Get out there and own the platform.
Thanks for listening to the Speaking of Speaking podcast. Fired up about something you heard today? Want to learn more? Be sure to visit carlspeaks.ca. And don't forget to follow Carl on Twitter @CarlRichards72 or join the Facebook group Speaking of Speaking.